This conference will now be recorded.
Hi guys, good morning. Okay, any questions we have from our previous classes? If anything that needs to be discussed, we can quickly uh, check that. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, so I'll take that as, yeah, Prakash, you have something to ask?
యాక్చువల్గా మామూలుగా ఇప్పుడు క్లౌడ్ అంటే చాలా మంది అందరూ ఎజ్యూర్ కాకుండా మా ఏడబ్ల్యూఎస్ కూడా నేర్చుకోవాలి అంటున్నారు. ఏది సార్ అది? ఓన్లీ ఎజ్యూర్ మీద ఓపెనింగ్స్ ఉండవు, ఓన్లీ అనేసి అంటున్నారు. ఏడబ్ల్యూఎస్ కూడా నేను నేర్చుకోవాలి అంటున్నారు సార్.
Okay, so right, so it's better to have the knowledge of AWS as well. There is nothing wrong. But specialization, if you want, you have to concentrate on one of them, right? So yes, it's an advantage to have multi-cloud knowledge, which could be, you know, AWS, GCP, or Azure. But what I suggest is get yourself, you know, get yourself with full knowledge on one of the Azure technologies. Then it is easy for you to learn the others if you want, right? Yes. So these days, people are looking for a multi-cloud, you know, skills. But it should not be a problem for you guys if you get hold of at least one cloud, and the concepts and the terminology will be almost same, right? So only maybe the names of those things, certain things might change, and some additional features might be there in other cloud technologies versus Azure, or there might be additional things in Azure which might not be there in other cloud technologies, right? So if you want to learn, yes, you can. But if you want to go with Azure as specialization, yes, there are jobs. You will get the job. There should not be a problem.
Okay, thanks.
Satish, any questions you have? Okay, so I'll take it as no. We'll move ahead. I can't hear you, Satish. I'm not sure if you're trying to speak. All right. So what we had seen so far is from last 1 week, we have been discussing about the networking concepts. There are still 3 or 4 concepts left actually, right? So we'll just take a pause of the networking. We'll move to the storage part. Okay. So once we complete the storage, then we'll come back to networking, and again little bit of monitoring and security, and then Active Directory, right? So that will be our plan. Today, what I want to start is, I want to start with our storage, okay? So Azure storage, that's what will be our today's, maybe next 3 days, 3 classes or 4 classes will be into completely storage related concepts, okay? So Azure storage. Now, like your infrastructure as service or anything that which you use on cloud, right? We use that as a service, right? It could be a virtual machine, it could be a database, it could be an application, it could be a storage, it could be a backup, whatever. It could be Active Directory, anything that which you use on cloud, you use that as a service, right? So you also get storage as a service when you go with what do you call it as uh, storage related solution. So you can go and use it as a service, right? Now storage, there are a lot of changes around this from the earlier from couple of years or even before that. Earlier there used to be something called as storage account, which we will be discussing in some time. Storage account, right? And this, if you use a storage account, then we call it as unmanaged disk. Managed disk. If you don't use a storage account, then Azure manages it. Then we call it as managed, right? Or managed storage, right? Now, first thing what we need to understand is what a storage account is, and what are the different types of unmanaged storages, and how do we create them. If I want to create a managed storage, and how do I do that? What are the different ways of doing it, right? We'll try to basically understand few things around the storage itself, okay? Now let's get started. I have a couple of slides around this which we'll be going through. Right. So any storage that which we have, what does we do, right? We keep some data. Now what is the expectation from the storage? It should be scalable, right? So any cloud service that which you have, the basic characteristics of any cloud should be scalable and redundant, right? Self-service and all those things, right? Now the same solution or the same characteristics you have even for the Microsoft storage or Microsoft Azure storage, right? Now when you subscribe yourself to the Azure, you can go and create a storage from here, right? You can go and search storage, you can see storage account, right? Now what is the storage account, and what do I need to do for the storage account? We'll come back to that. But when you try to use an unmanaged storage, then you go for something called as storage accounts. Within that storage account, you create multiple types of storages, right? So how do we do, and all those things we'll we'll discuss that. But a storage account is an entity which can hold multiple types of storage, okay? Now there is a limitation, right? There is a limitation around that, right? Each subscription can hold up to 500 TB of storage, right? That's what the limitation. If you want to increase that further, you can go and talk to Microsoft and they'll increase that further, okay? Now Azure storages, when we talk, they can be categorized into 4 types, right? They can be categorized into 4 types. Blob storage, right? Blob. Then you have something called as what do you call queues. We have something called as tables. Then you have something called as files. Now what we are talking is, we are talking about unmanaged storage. All these things will be under storage account. All these things will be under storage account, which is nothing but your unmanaged disk. So unmanaged disk, or within a storage account, you can create 4 types of storages. Now what are those 4 types of storages are? One is blob storage, second one is queues, third one is tables, fourth one is files. Now we need to understand what each one of this is. What is blob storage? What is queue? What is table? What is file? Right? Now the first, from second to last, they are self-explanatory. Right? Now what is a queue? A queue is nothing but a repository kind of stuff which holds some messages. For example, if one application is trying to communicate with the other application, it sends a series of messages, right, or packets. Now you can use these queues to store those messages or to pass those messages at a scheduled point of time and so on, right? That is nothing but your queues. Now this will be basically used, most of the times this will be used by your application developers, right? The queues, whatever. If you recall it, there is something called as first in, first out, FIFO, and so on. So the queues follow something called as FIFO, first in, first out. Now the storage type queues is basically for storing the messages or the within the queues for the applications, right? And you also have something called as tables. Tables are nothing but, as the name says, it's a table. Now the table will have some data, and that data we call it a structured data. Structured data. So tables again will be used for the development and to store the data. So it's almost like your SQL database or whatever. But if you want to use Azure tables for your development, you can still go and use it, right? So storage account will also have something called as tables. So we had seen queues, we had seen tables, and there is also something called as files, right? Now file storage is used to store the files, right? You can store the files and share that to your end user as a mapped drive. So what you give them a link using which they will map the devices, they will map the what you call file share to their local machine as a mapped drive, like M drive, Q drive, N drive, or whatever. Like how you do in your production environment, where you will have a file server and keep all your data on that, and you give the file share details, server name / share name, right? Similarly, you can give file share details to the users, and they can map and access the files that which are sitting on the cloud in Azure storage and use it, right? That is for files, only for files and folders, right? Now queues, tables, files, and there's something called as blob storage, right? Now what is a blob? Blob stands for binary large object. Binary large object. Blob stands for binary large object. Now what type of data we can store in this particular storage type? You can store objects like images, right, videos, audios, and your VHD files and so on, right? A blob storage can further be divided into multiple blob types, which we will be seeing in a couple of minutes. But a blob storage will have data which is of type, images, videos, and large files and so on, right? So a storage account will have, or will a storage account has got different types of storages when you call unmanaged disk. Now in that you have blob storage, queues, tables, and files, right? So that's what a storage account will have, right? We'll see that. Just remember these terms and terminologies, then you'll understand as we move on. Okay. Now we had seen storage consists of 4 types of data services, right? What are they? Blob, file, table, queue, right? Now, what are the different types of storage accounts itself you have? Now a storage account has got these type of services. Now do we have different types of storage accounts? Yes, we have different type of storage accounts, right? Now what are those storage accounts? Where do I find? Is here, right? If you go to the storage accounts here towards your left side in the favorites, you can find or you can also go and type your storage account here. A storage account, as I said, is unmanaged, right? Now, how do I find what are the different types of storage accounts I have? You can click on add, right? You can click on add. Then you can go with different types of storage accounts. That's what you want to create, right? You can see account kind or account type. Now, what are the different types of accounts you have? Storage general purpose V2, storage general purpose V1, and you have something called as blob storage, right? These are the different types of storage accounts. But within that, based on the performance, you have two types of storage accounts. One is premium and second one is standard. As the name suggests, the performance of premium will be higher when compared to the performance of standard. Okay, so when you create a storage account, what you do is you create a storage account name which should be unique. It should be unique across the location, and you select what type of performance you want, whether you want a standard or whether you want a premium. Within standard, you have three types of storage accounts, which is nothing but general purpose V2, general purpose V1, and blob storage. Now it is recommended to go with V2 because that will have latest features added. V1 is the older version, which is recommended not to use. Right? That is a standard. In standard, you have three types. If you go to premium, where you will get high performance, you will see general purpose V2, blob, and file storage also as a preview, which means that it is not yet in production. Right? They are still testing. Right? You can use it, but Microsoft won't support in case if there are any issues if they are using file storage. Right? So in premium, they also included the file storage. Okay. Now, two types based on the performance, standard and premium. Within standard, you will have three types of storage accounts, which is nothing but general purpose V1, general purpose V2, and blob storage, and then premium. Now, within blob storage, if you select, then you will also see once you create it, different types of blob types, right? Now, let us quickly discuss about other things, right? There is something called as replication, right? There's something called as replication. Now, the data that whatever you store on a storage, by default, it will be replicated into 3 disks. By default, it will be replicated into 3 disks. Okay. Now, if you want additional redundancy of the data, that what you have on the storage, you can go with additional replication solutions that what you have. Now, what are those replication solutions you have are here, right? One is LRS, which is locally redundant storage. Second one is ZRS, which is zone redundant storage. And third one is GRS, which is like geo redundant storage, which means that to a different geographical location you are replicating. And there is something called as the read access redundant storage, which means that you will have a read-only copy of your data. So these are used for your high availability purpose. If you want to have high availability solution for your storage, you can go with one of these solutions. So one is LRS, second one is ZRS, third one is GRS, and fourth one is RAGRS, which is nothing but read access geo redundant storage. Right? Now, based on the performance you select, the replication options will vary. Based on the performance type you select, the replication options will vary. If it is standard, you have these options to replicate. But if you are going with premium, you have only locally redundant storage. Right? Now, because it is a premium, I think they want to have they got enough redundant solutions. I think that's the reason they are giving only LRS. Right? Now within standard, you also have something called as cool and hot, which is called as access tier. Now what is this cool and hot? You can select a cool option in a situations where you don't access your data so frequently. In the sense, let us say that you have some archival data, old data, but you want to keep that for some auditing purpose or whatever, right? And there will be some auditing regulations, right? Organizations should keep their data for these many years, kind of, right? Or now if you want to go and store that kind of data, which is kind of not accessed so frequently, then you can go with access tier as cool, which basically means that you are not accessing the data frequently. You can go with hot tier in case you access it as a normal drive, right? So that's where you take a call whether you want to go with cool or you want to go with hot tier, right? That's what this information will tell, right? So the account access tier is a default tier that is inferred by the blob without specifying explicitly. Hot access tier is an ideal for frequently accessed data, right? Whereas cool access is for infrequently accessed data, right? Now, what happens if you select cool and try to access the data like how you access it in the hot? Then you will be charged in the same way how this will be charged. So if you are selecting a cool tier, the charges will be less, provided if you are accessing that as an archive, which means infrequent access. If you go and access it, even if you are keeping that in a cool tier and accessing like as a hot tier, then definitely you will have the same charges whatever you see here, right? Now, so these are the different types of options or different options you have within the storage account when you create, right? Let us quickly go back to our slide once again, right? So these are the different types of storage accounts, right? Now we discussed about blob at a very low level, right? So as I said, blob is nothing but binary large object. Blob is again of multiple types, right? Blob is again of multiple types, right? Blob is again of multiple types. Let me show that. Yeah. So here is where it is. One is called as page blob. Second one is called as append blob. And third one, you have something called as block blob, right? These are the different types of blobs, right? Now we'll discuss each one of these blob and what is the usage of each blob, right? Now, first one is block blob. First one is block blob. Now, as I said, we store the data in blocks. In block blobs or any blobs, you store data in blocks, and your files will be divided into something called as blocks, right? So each file will each block will have some size, 4 MB or 8 MB, 10 MB or whatever, based on the block type you select. And when it stores the data, your files will be divided into blocks and they will be stored in the storage. That's the name. That's why this has got a name called block blob, right? Now the other type of blob you have is called as page blob. Now a page blob you will use when you access data randomly. Simple example is your virtual machine itself. So a virtual machine itself is a file, right? So your virtual machine, whether it is VMware, whether it is Hyper-V, whether you store it on AWS or whether you store it on Azure, all the VMs you store it as what? A VHD file, which is nothing but a file, right? Now when you read data from that file, you read data randomly, sometime from this file location on the file table or file system table, or sometimes from a different location and so on, right? So those type of files like the VHD files or virtual machine files when you go with storage account, which means that unmanaged storages, they store in a file type called as page blobs, right? So all the virtual machine files in an unmanaged disk will be stored in something called as page blobs, right? Page blobs, right? We'll see all those things. Just understand the terminology, right? Page blob. Page blob is used to store VHDs. Now, when it is used only when you are using unmanaged disk. If you are using a managed disk, this is not applicable, right? Because the page blob will be part of your storage account. Storage account is not needed when you are going with managed disk because Azure manages it. When you are using an unmanaged disk, your VHDs will be stored in a blob type called page blob, right? That's what it says. Now the third blob type is called as append blob. The other blob type is called as append blob. Now what is this used for? The name says itself. The name itself says append. What is the meaning of append? To add something to an existing one, right? That is called as append. You're appending something. Now this type of blobs are used to store logs, logging information, where you are going and writing logs when you are keeping storage, when you are storing the logs of the application or system or whatever. That time you can go and use this type of blob, right? So block blob, page blob, and append blob. Block blob, you can use this to store the files like images, media files. Then all these things can be used when you go with when you are using these type of files, you can go with block blobs. When you want to use a blob for your VHD files, you will go with page blob. Whether if you select an unmanaged storage, Azure itself selects when it creates a VHD file, that VHD file will be part of a page blob, right? The third type of blob is append blob, and where you will store the frequently it will be used for storing the logging information, right? Now these are the three types of blobs, right? That is a blob type of service, right? Blob again has three types. One is block blob, page blob, and append blob, right? There's three types. One is block blob, page blob, and then append. Right. Right. So blob storage, three types: block, page, append. Right. Fine. So all these are part of your unmanaged storage. And each blob again has got some size limitation and other things. I will be sharing this PPT. You can have that. You can go through that. That is very much documented. Now, how do I access these blobs? How do I access these blobs? You have a URL. When you create a storage account, it creates a URL. You can see the standard naming convention, right? A naming convention will be HTTPS. Your storage account name. When you create a storage account, you give a name here, right? You give a name here, right? Some name, right? That's storage account name. And then it will be appended with blob.core.windows.net/container/blob name. We'll see what is that container and what is that blob name. But this is how the standard naming convention is if you access any blob. Or you can also access it using a PowerShell script or Azure CLI if you want to include that in any coding or whatever, right? So here they are given an example, right? If your storage account name is my storage, then how it will be HTTPS my storage dot blob core dot windows.net, and if your container name is animals, and if it also got a blob which has got cats, and then some files, right? This is how they will be accessed, right? Now, difference between blob and page, which this we had already discussed, but it's a tabular format which is included here. Now, what is that? It is used block storage, ideal for sequential reading and writing. And we said a page blob random reads. If you are reading from a file system in a different location, then you can go with page blob. That's why we quoted an example of VHD file, right? So that's what they say. VHD files are virtual machines, whereas in block blobs you can store some files like MP3 or any audio, video, and so on, different files, right? The maximum size it can go with up to 4 MB. What is the size of that we are talking? A block size, right? So your data will be divided into blocks, whatever you are storing, and each block will have a size, and the maximum size that what you can go is up to 4 MB when it comes to the block blob. And when you go to the page blob, it is by default the multiples of 512 bytes, right? Multiples of 512 bytes. And bitlock and whether we can use what do you call it as put block is uncommitted. This is not needed much, but there is another feature called as put block that can be used for reference. But what we need to understand is there is nothing much to know about all those things. This is needed because we are writing an exam. Okay. Now we don't use these blobs and blocks in our real time. Developers use append and developers use what you call queues and tables, but you as a system admin will not be using these much. So most of the times we'll go with managed blocks, managed storage itself. But for our exam point of view, we should be knowing this. Okay. So this is the difference between page and blob, and we have something called as storage, right? We had also discussed something called as file storage here, right? File storage. You can also store files. Now this file storage is used to store the files, as I said. Now what type of files? Any files, like how you store your project files in a file share. In the same way in Azure also you can store some files. For that you create a file share. Now that file share, whatever create, will use what protocol to access? SMB protocol, right? What is SMB protocol? SMB is nothing but server message block, right? Even if you are using a Windows server, when you are accessing a files on a file share, it uses the same protocol, right? SMB protocol. So you can use the Azure file storage will also use same SMB protocol. Now what is that you are achieving here? You are achieving, instead of you provisioning a VM, right? How does it will be in your real-time environment? If you are on-prem, you provision a VM, right? On top of this VM, you install file services or file services role, right? File and file share services, right? And then what you do, you create a file share. File share and put data, right? That's what you do. But in Azure, what is that you are avoiding? If you are putting data on Azure, you are avoiding this one, right? The entire VM is not there. What you are doing here is you are creating a file storage, a file share, which sits on our storage, and you put your data, and users will access this file share using a URL. Or they can also use it as map drive. So what is the advantage you get? If your VM is down, your file share is not accessible here. But here in this type of solution, you still have, because you are storing your files on a storage directly, and you are not dependent on any operating system. That's the reason this takes advantage when compared to the traditional file share methodology, right? That's what it says. The second point, this means that multiple VMs can share the same files, both read and write access. So however, whatever the way here you access the data, the same way here also multiple people can access, right? Same way you give the file share details and they will access it. We'll see how do we create it, how do we map a file share and all those things. We'll see practically, but just for understanding you have to know this, right? Now file shares on premises versus Azure file share, which we just discussed. Okay, so here you have something called as ACLs, right? If you are into Windows administration or anything, ACLs, or what you call it as groups, security groups. Using a security groups, what you do, you give permissions to the group of users when you create a share folder on Windows or whatever, right? So you create a security group, you add all those list of users to a security group and provide access. Now how do I do that here on a file share on Azure? For that you have something called as shared access signature, right? A shared access signature is a security key which will be part of your URL that which you will be sharing with the user, and using that security key you will be authenticating to your file share which is sitting on the Azure. So you are not providing access based on the security groups here, but what you do here is you use something called as shared access signature, which we call it as SAS, which we will be seeing practically when we do it, when we create a file share, use something called as shared access signature, right? So here what you use, here you use something called as SAS, which is nothing but shared access signature. So this is appended to your URL, right? You will have primary SAS and you will have secondary SAS, right? You have primary SAS, you will have secondary SAS. So when you are sharing a link to the user, you can share both of them. Now if primary URL with primary SAS is not working, then they can go with URL with secondary SAS. Let us say that you feel that this is compromised, this is shared with somebody else, you can always go and change the shared access signature, and you have to redistribute that new URL with a new shared access signature to the users again. So this is not necessarily be used by your users, this can also be used within the development. Which means if you're writing some code and you need access to a file share as a part of that code, you can go and put this primary URL with URL with primary SAS or URL with secondary SAS in your code itself, and your code will directly have access to the file share, and they can go and write and read data from that particular file share, right? So that can also be included as a part of your code. Okay, now that's the advantage of SAS, which we call it a shared access signature. We'll see that when we do it practically, what is shared access signature. But what are the different types of files, types of files you can store? You can store all the types of files, right from your normal project related files, logs, and whatever you want, right? And I said it uses SMB, right? SMB 2.1 is what it will use for communication, right? So you will also have SMB 3.0 that can also be used, but you need to check the compatibility of SMB 3.0 when you are using with your application, right? And the port for SMB is 445, right? 445 is the port that which SMB will use. So you need to make sure that when you're accessing that on Azure, you have to have this port open, right? Otherwise you will not be able to access the file. or data within the file share. Now, what is the maximum size of the file share? It is up to 5 TB, right? That's what you can go with, right? Now, this is about the table storage, which we discussed, unstructured data, which is nothing but no SQL kind of storage. And how do I use it? If you are a developer, you want to use this as a storage table, you again use this as a URL itself, right? Now, it is the same way how you had seen it, a storage account name, and then you have something called as table.core.windows.net, and the table name that which you create. You put this when you are using that within your what you call it as code, or you can also directly access this using a URL also, right? So this is table storage. And we had also seen queue storage, right? What it does, it will have messages. Now, what is the size of messages? It can be up to 44 KB. Now, if your application needs some communication, right? Let us say there are two interfaces within the application which needs a communication between them. So each application will send some messages to the other one, right? So those type of situations you use this queue, right? And what is the size of the queue, that size of the message that which you can go with? 64 KB, right? And all those queues, what do you call it as, will be part of your storage account, right? So as I said in our earlier discussion, it uses first in first out. That's what the support of the queues, what this queue storage will provide, right? So this is basically used most of the times in the development again. Now we discussed about redundancy, just included here in this chart, in this slide, LRS, geo-redundant, right? Read, access, geo-redundant, and ZRS. Some theory around this, right? Azure provides high availability by ensuring that 3 copies of all the data is made synchronously before write is deemed successful, right? That's what I was saying. So in LRS, what will happen? It keeps 3 copies of the data, and it will only say that okay, writing is completed only once the data is written to all the 3 different types of storage. That's how you are attaining the local redundancy. That which what it means, that even 1 copy of the data is gone, you still have 2 copies of your data locally within that data center. So here within that data center, we need to understand that LRS is within that data, within that facility, right? Now, if 1 copy of the data is gone, you still have the other 2 copies of data. That's what you are attaining the redundancy in LRS, right? Now, when you request data to update on the storage, what will happen? It updates on all the three different types of storages where your data is, right? Now, because it is local, obviously, what do you call it as less expensive when compared to the other redundant solutions, and it offers high throughput, right? So that is very important. So it is less expensive because it is stored locally, right? It's LRS. The second one is GRS, right? It makes a copy of this region to another region, right? To another high availability region. There are something called as paired regions, right? So it makes a copy of the data to another paired region. How many copies it makes? It again makes 3 copies, right? So that is called as geo-redundant storage, which means that in a different geographical locations, you have data replicated, and the cost of this is higher when compared to what you call it as LRS, right? Now, this solution is basically for any redundant solution is for high availability. But if you are going with disaster recovery kind of solution, then you can use this particular solution, geo-redundant, because you are keeping your data in a different geographical location altogether, right? If one region is not available, you have a replica of the data in another region. That's why it is recommended to go with geo-redundant storage when you want a redundancy or disaster recovery solution or business continuity solution, right? BCDR, business continuity and disaster recovery, right? And the third one is, it's almost like your geo-redundant, but the difference is whatever the data that which you store on the other site, it is read only or read access, you can call it, right? What it means is the secondary copy is a read access copy, and you can use it when your primary copy is not available, right? So that is the difference between geo redundant and read access geo redundant, right? This is read only, this is read write, right? Zone. Now we had seen what a zone is, right? Each data center will have multiple zones, and a zone is nothing but it has got its own independent what do you call it as power, independent network, and independent cooling, right? Now if you want to keep that in a different zone, then you can go with ZRS, right? You can go with ZRS. So these are the different redundant or high availability solution that what you have when you go with storage, unmanaged storage. One is LRS, second one is GRS, third one is RAGRS, and fourth one is ZRS, right? Right. Storage account types, and then some theory around that. I wish you use this as a reference. What are the different options that which you have here? What is available in what type of storage and all those things, just for our understanding. So all the type of storages will get with an encryption. This is very much needed when you talk to the customer. They will ask whether my data is encrypted or not. I mean, the encryption is again two types of encryption, right? The transit data encryption and data whatever is stored on the disk, right? So data stored on the disk is encrypted because you are also using HTTPS in the URL that whatever you access, right? Earlier you had seen URLs. If you are using HTTP, it is a plain text, but if you are using HTTPS, then it is again, you can see that, right? HTTPS, right? Which means that the data which is getting transmitted across the regions is also a encrypted one, right? So data in transit, data on disk, both are encrypted, right? That also very important when we talk to the customer. These questions they will ask, right? Right. We'll come back to these things. There are a few other things that which are RBAC and Azure Key Vault, the other features. But for the one that what we are going to discuss, whatever we discussed, that theory is enough, right? So let us quickly go and look at how do we create a storage account and what are the different types of storage accounts and so on. And then to the extent whatever we can cover today, if there will be few more concepts which to be discussed tomorrow as well, right? So where do I go and look for managed and unmanaged, right? So if I want to go with unmanaged, which means that I'll go with storage account itself. If you want to deal with unmanaged disk, right? If you want to go with managed, then you can directly go with a disk, right? You can go and create a disk from here itself, right? In unmanaged disk, you directly create the disk, right? So here within the disk, you have an option called add. You can go and create a disk from here, which will be managed disk, right? This we had seen when we attached a disk to a VM. We created a disk and we attached it. Same thing here. So here you see an option, what type of disk you want, right? Right? Snapshot, storage blob, none, and you also see the size. Here you should see the different types, right? Now this is your managed disk. So whatever you create from here, right? This is a managed disk. If you want to go with unmanaged disk, you go and create a storage account, and you within that storage account you create a storage. It can be any type of storage that what you have here, Okay, all right, click on add. Right, you will create a resource group. Because we don't have a resource group, I'll go and create a resource group SRC, and then you have a storage account name. This is a unique account. This should be unique. And you remember we had seen that URL, right? You are in this slide we had seen the URL, right? Here you use the storage account name when you access that through a URL, right? So that's why you go and specify the storage account name. Let me put it as demo SR. Hopefully it is there. Yeah, so nobody is using it. And you select the location, and then you select what type of storage you want, right? So I'll go with a standard V2 or storage V2, and then you can go and create it, right? So we are creating a standard what you call storage account. We'll see, we'll come back to premium as well with a hot tier in place, right? This is how you can create a storage. So what did we do? We created a storage account. Right? This is your storage. Right? Let that get created. Now every storage account will have something called as container. Okay, so that we'll be seeing in the next step. We have a container. Next thing what we have here is a container. Right? So when you're creating a blob, you will create a container, right? That we'll be seeing once this is deployed. And that container will have required data or whatever, right? So that's how it is structured. So storage, container, and then your blob, and within that blob type you will have data, right? Why it is taking time. Right? Okay. So this is my storage account. Now within this storage account, what are the different types of services I have? I have blobs, I have files, right? I have tables, and then I have queues, right? So within this storage account, you can create or use any of those four services based on your requirement, right? So a storage account will have four types of services. Okay. Now let us quickly look at blobs, right? Let us quickly look at blobs. Let us click on blob, right? So when you want to use a blob, you will create something called as container, right? So your storage account, and if your storage account you are going with blob, then what you do, you use something called as container. And use something called as container. Within this container, or your files will be there, or files or whatever you store, right? Let us quickly go and create a container. Let us name it as demo container. let us name it as demo container. I think it should be small case, right? Demo container. Now you have access level, which we will be discussing tomorrow. I'll leave that as it is. And then create. So what did we do? We created a storage account. We created a container, right? And within this container, you can go and upload your different type of data, right? You see an option here called. When you click on upload, right? If you go to advanced, what type of blob you want, what type of data you want to append, whether it is block, whether it is page, whether you want append, what type of blob. Based on the type of blob, you can go and upload your data, right? From here, you can upload the files to your, what do you call it as, right? Let us say that I want to upload this particular document. I can go and, if you want to create that a folder, let us say that demo folder, it will create a folder, and within that folder, it will upload the data, right? Right? So you can see a folder is created, and your file will be uploaded in this. So likewise, you can use different types of blobs, right? Within a container, you can use different types of blobs. If you want to create a page blob, you can create it and upload some VHD files and all those things, right? You see an option, upload a VHD file as a page blob recommended, which is nothing but your VM, what do you call it as VM file, right? Whatever your virtual machine. And the block size of this one is 4 MB max. That's what we discussed, right? So if you have a VHD file, you can go and directly upload from here, right? I don't have a VHD file, I will not be uploading that, right? Likewise, you can go and upload different types of files based on the blob type that which you want, right? You can go and select append blob, and you can use this for logging purpose, right? Within your application or whatever. You can see for this block, for this append block, the block size changes. You can select from 64 KB to 4 MB, which means that the file that whatever is getting created can be structured based on the block size that what you define here, right? So likewise, you can use within the standard different types of blobs and access those files that whatever are stored here within this block blob or page blob or append blob, using some URL or whatever, right? So you can see here, if you click on it, you can see an option to download. You can see an option to generate SAS, which is nothing but security authentication code, right? Which you use when you put that in your what do you call it as code and so on, right? Different options. Right? Click on SAS. Right? You can generate blob SAS token and URL, right? Whether you want HTTP or HTTPS, and you can use this as a part of your code, right? That's what we will use, right? So we still have a few other things to be discussed. So it's already 8. So what we do is we'll pause here. Tomorrow we'll continue with the other blob types like page, queue, and the other blob types as well, files, right? Where tomorrow we'll see how do we create a file, share and map it and use it, and all those things tomorrow we'll be seeing. Okay, so these things most of the times nowadays we are not using, but there could be a requirement where you might use it, where specifically if some developer wants some kind of table circuits and also on that type of situation you may use it, but most of the times we use only managed storage. But for what you call interview or for examination perspective, you definitely have to have knowledge on these concepts. Okay, so we'll stop here. What we'll do is we'll continue with the same thing tomorrow. We'll look at the other services within the storage, and we'll see how do we map file share, how do we create a file share, and how do we use that from the end user perspective, how do they map and use it, and so on, right? And we'll see something called as Storage Explorer, which is a tool that which you can use to directly connect to the storage accounts, right? It is a GUI tool using which you can directly connect to your storage account and upload and download data, look at the tables, queues, and all those things. That also will be looking at tomorrow, which is nothing but your Storage Explorer, another small tool which we need to understand to upload and download data from your storage accounts or blobs or whatever. Right? So we'll pause here. If you have any questions, we can take. Otherwise, we'll meet up tomorrow at the same time.
Yeah, see, actually, I saw that note. I mean, I saw in the PPT like custom domains not supported, like HTTPS. What is that?
Repeat that question, Prakash.
Yeah. Actually, I saw in PPT like custom domains not supported, like HTTPS.
Right. Custom domain is custom. See, you see a default domain here, right? Default domain name, right? Default domain name, right? This is a default domain name. What Azure gives, right? So all the tables or whatever you use, it will have the same what you call it as naming or URL naming convention. You see it, right? Table.core. This thing, and similarly, whatever the URL that which you get, it will have, right? This is Azure DNS name, right? So if you want to change this into a custom, your own what you call it as custom domain name, for example, your company xyz.com, then you want to put that here, that is not allowed. That's what it says, right? Microsoft does not support using custom domain with HTTPS, right? So they may change that in future, but right now you will be using the same naming, what you call it, extension of the domain name, right?
Okay, and I mean, in real time, how do you identify the particular instance is development and particular instance development is testing and production, something like that? How do you identify that instance?
So okay, so that is something that which you will be needed an environment knowledge, and B, you will anyway put all these resources in a kind of resource groups or tag those resource groups, which we'll be seeing in our tagging class. That's how you will identify, or most of the times your naming convention itself will say whether it is development, test, or whatever. For example, if you have a server, if it is a development, you want to put in the server name itself some methodology, some way to identify whether it is a production server or development server, and so on, right? So your server naming conventions or resource naming conventions should have that particular format when you name them, right? So that will be part of your designing phase itself, where you identify what should be the naming convention, how the resources should be named, and so on, right? So even if you look at the on-prem environment, all your servers will be named so, right? A production, if it is a file server in a specific location. So these things will be part of your naming convention itself. For example, prod, file servers, FS, and in India, IND, right? So you append all these acronyms or shortcuts within your resource name, so that when you see that resource itself, you'll be able to identify whether it is production, non-prod, if yes, what services that particular service server hold, in which location it is. That is one way of doing it. And the other way of doing it is putting that in a resource groups and naming them in that particular format and so on, right? So that's the only way where you can go and identify whether it is production or development or whatever, right? But with Azure will not tell you whether it is production or development. You have to categorize or segregate that whether it is production, dev, pre-prod or whatever.
Okay. Okay. And in portal, in Azure portal, like see, suppose I create a couple of resources like local network gateways and like virtual network gateways and all that. So if I want to see all the resources what I have created, where we need to go?
So you want to see all the resources what you created. You have all resources one option here, right?
Yeah, is there? Yeah.
You can see all the resources, but if you want to see only the one that which you have created, then you may have to export the resources and use a small script to get created by right. So in that way you can extract the resources. That is possible. Okay, so who created it and so on, based that every object here or resource will have certain attributes, right? Who created and all those things. Yes, that can be extracted using a PowerShell or some other format. Right? Here also you see an option to export that as a CSV. Not sure if that gives. If we can include the additional columns, if you have here, then I think you should be able to export that as well. There should not be a problem. Let's see.
Okay.
Source ID, subscription, kind. But you can do it. That can be done. That can be done. What else?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, guys? Okay, I'll take it as no. We'll meet up tomorrow at the same time and continue with our storage. Not tomorrow, on Monday. I'm sorry. Then we'll continue with our storage concepts further. Thank you. Have a great day.